Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So yesterday, I made a video reacting to the Athletics' top 10 best contracts in the NHL, basically taking their advanced stats model that projects the overall value cap-wise that a player provides across the duration of their contract. They gave us the top 10. There are some pretty interesting picks. They have Gustav Forslink's 8-year, $5.75 million contract at number one. Feel free to go check that one out. But today we have the more fun list. In my opinion, it's more fun to look at the absolute abomination deals in the NHL. So they have the bottom 10, the 10 worst. We're going to pull it up right now. The 10 worst contracts heading into next season. And you got the familiar names: Jonathan Huberdeau, Darnell Nurse, and more. Got to think of Seth Jones is on there. I'm trying to think. Jack Campbell's gone now. But there's going to be some guys we can probably assume is going to be on here. But without further ado, let's dive into it. This is, of course, from The Athletic. Feel free to go subscribe. I'm a subscriber. I'm breaking the paywall right now for you guys to see this. This might get flagged. But of course, Jonathan Huberdeau isn't dead last. And yeah, he's still an okay player. Like, he's a okay second liner at this point. He's a 50 to 60-ish point second liner. The only problem is when you're paying him, let's pull up how much is left, $10.5 million over the next 7 years, and he's 30 or maybe even 31 at this point. He's entering, I don't know if that's like this season he's going to be 31, but yeah, if his peak appears to already be over. His peak ended in 2022, but it's only going to get worse from here. It's really only going to get worse from here if you're a Calgary Flames fan. At least now, like, who really cares about the next 3 to 4 years of this deal, considering they're going to be rebuilding? It might be something where in like the final 2 years of this, they might have to move off it because they're hopefully going to be trying to compete by then. But it's not, in terms of like a team needing cap space, in terms of like factoring in the actual team, it's probably not the worst contract in the NHL now because the Calgary Flames are going to be rebuilding. But in terms of just player and salary cap hit and term left, it is the worst. Shout out the U.S. Olympics, going to dominate in Paris this summer. Who's going to be number two? We all assume that Huberdeau is probably going to be number two. Chandler Stevenson already checks in at number two. 7 years, $6.25 million. Yeah, they have him as a $3.6 million player as soon as next year. He only had, I think, 51 points this season. I think that he had like 65 the year prior. I think he can be like a 5.5, maybe even $6.25 million player like the first couple years of this deal. Yes, I think they're saying that he's going to be the league minimum by year 5 of this deal. So that's a little bit bold for me. The model really hates him. I guess last year, you can't see my mouse, but like in the 2023, 2024, in 2022, 2023, he wasn't that bad, but they're expecting like a fat aging curve for him considering he's 30 years old. I think that's a little bit rough. Only $6.25 million, a guy that scored back-to-back seasons of like 60 points in 2022 and 2023. I got to disagree with that one, even though I think it was the worst deal signed of any deal signed this summer. They say that the market value is $2.2 million over 7 years. I agree it's far too much term, but that seems wild. Tom Wilson checks in at number 3. He, of course, signed a 7 or 8 year deal at $6.5 million. They're saying he's already going to be $4.2 million as soon as next season. And yeah, he had 35 points in 74 games last year, which is like third liner numbers when looking at it. So Tom Wilson definitely not going to be worth this $6.5 million, and he's 30 years old. I was fine with this deal when it appeared like the Washington Capitals were just going to like let Ovechkin get the goal record the next season or two and then just nuclear blow it up. But now they're trying to like go for it. So this deal is definitely even more of a head scratcher considering they gave him so much term and decently high AAV. If it was like 7 years, $5 million when they gave it to him during last season, I'd be like, okay, you get a low AAV. He can maybe live up to that the first couple years. But I don't know if he's ever going to be worth $6.5 million for a single season based on what we saw from him this season. So definitely a little bit of a head scratcher from the Washington Capitals this year. Next up, Colton Parayko. I disagree with that one. I still think he's a very good defensive defenseman. They're saying he's only worth $3.7 million next season. I think it's a bad deal just because there's, again, 6 years left at $6.5 million. He's probably worth like 5.5 right now. I can't believe that we haven't seen Seth Jones or Darnell Nurse yet. That's a little bit crazy considering those guys are making 9.25 and 9.5. I would not have Colton Parayko ahead of those guys on a top 10 worst contracts in the NHL. Damon Severson checks in at number 5. He had a rough first year in Columbus, but like everybody stinks in Columbus. So when looking at this, he still has 6 more years at $6.3 million. Again, I don't think that he's as bad as Seth Jones or Darnell Nurse. I think that's crazy to have him this low. But yeah, I don't know why the Columbus Blue Jackets last summer, Jarmo Kekalainen's already fired. This was a part of the reason why this guy was fired. But yeah, he gave up a 3rd-round pick and was like, I need Damon Severson to come in and be the savior of my defense corps. Mark Scheifele at number 6. Sorry, my computer's down there. I don't have the setup completely done right, but that shocked me. They're saying that he is the 6th worst contract. I got shit for saying this deal was like a C or like a C plus. Right now, and people said I was an idiot, said it was a great deal. It's going to be a bad deal just because he's, 31 years old already? And yeah, he's $8.5 million. Like this year he was 8.5. But once that aging curve hits, it's going to hit. But for it to be the 6th worst contract in the NHL, man, that is crazy. This is a guy that's still around point per game. I think he can be point per game for another 2 to 3 years. Yes, the final seasons are going to be bad. But again, Seth Jones, Darnell Nurse, nowhere to be seen yet. But we have Mark Scheifele, who's still an $8.5 million. Again, that's why I don't solely trust the analytics because of stuff like this. Sean Couturier at number 7. Yeah, this is a tough one because it's just like, no one questions this deal. Like, we're going to get to, hopefully, Darnell Nurse and Seth Jones are on this. But, like, in the moment, we were like, what are you doing giving these guys, like, number 1 money? They're not that good. Sean Couturier is a tough one because he had those back injuries that just derailed his entire career. When he signed, what was this, a 7-year or 8-year, $7.75 million contract, he was still a legit 70-ish point Selke level defender. He won the Selke in like 2020. So like this was a good deal in the moment and we looked like it was going to age well. Then he just missed the first like year and a half of this contract. So I do agree now at this point, it's one of the worst deals in the NHL. But the context, it makes it not as bad in my opinion. But I understand they're not applying for context in this. Seth Jones finally at number 8. I mean, I've always said Seth Jones is miscast on the Chicago Blackhawks. He's playing 25, 26 minutes a night. I don't think that he is some horrendous defenseman, but at 6 years at $9.5 million, that is one of the worst contracts in the NHL. He's definitely he'd be an okay second pair guy on a playoff team. You know what I'm saying? He'd be worth, I don't know about $6.5 million, but $5 to $6 million, you could mask him and turn him into mask him in terms of like hide him in your lineup, and he'd be a very effective second pair guy. Darnell Nurse right after. Okay, so number 8 and 9, they're on this list, but again, I think that is crazy that they're not higher when looking at this. They have 6 years left, $9.25 million for Darnell Nurse. And yeah, he got exposed completely at times in the playoffs. At times he was the Edmonton Oilers' worst player. I think that he'd probably be my number 2 behind Jonathan Huberdeau right now. I got to revise and look at all the lists because, again, this is analytically based. But this is a bad contract. Tyler Seguin to round it out at number 10. And yeah, he bounced back this season. What did he have? Like 65 points. He was solid, but as you can see, he's making $9.9 million the next 3 seasons. He's making legit franchise center level money, top 10 center level money. So when looking at that, yeah, it is a bad contract, but there's only 3 years left. It's not a total disaster. Like heading into last season, it looked abysmal. Now it's like he's a $6 to $7 million player making 7.5. And then we got for the honorable mentions, yeah, Pierre-Luc Dubois. He's not going to be on my top 10, even though last season he was like legitimately like a $3 to $4 million player. I still think he has the talent. I still think he can turn it around in Washington. Other guys like Marc-Edouard Vlasic, 2 years left at $7 million, only 2 years left. John Gibson, I think he has like 3 or 4 years left at 6.4. It's a pretty bad contract. Anderson, 3 years left at 5. Brendan Gallagher, 3 years left at like $5.5 or $6 million. Those are pretty bad, but let me know in the comments, what do you think about this bottom 10 contracts in the NHL? I'm shocked that Mark Scheifele was ahead of Seth Jones and Darnell Nurse. That is absolutely crazy for me, but let me know in the comments if you share that sentiment. Who would be your number 2? I think we can agree Huberdeau is probably number 1. Who would be, outside of Darnell Nurse, Seth Jones, and Huberdeau, I think that's a lot of people's top 3. Who would be your number 4? Who would be your number 5? And I'll be seeing the next one.